Good afternoon. For those of you diligently following your program, you'll see that I am not Trina Foster. Unfortunately, she had last-minute complications and was not able to attend. So you get me instead. My name is Crystal Olson, and I'm the regional coordinator with the Ontario Centre for Workforce Innovation. And first, I would really like to thank NPI for taking on and sparking the discussion around this contentious issue, and what can be a fairly contentious issue. I'm going to take a little bit of a different stance than my fellow panelists. Because I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit on this issue, not swaying one way or the other, simply because there's too many variables, some of which I'm going to echo that David addressed as well, that haven't been addressed yet, or they haven't been identified yet. There's too many different questions, and I'm going to take a look at those today. And I'm probably going to leave you with more questions than something substantive to go with. But I think that's good, because that helps us engage in the discourse to really take a look at the issues that we face across the North. So I do want to focus on what we need and the challenges that need to be addressed to make evidence-informed decisions around devolution for Northern Ontario. Now, this topic is certainly not unique when looking at a global or even national scale, as David has mentioned, in regards to the Northern European countries. So better understanding those varied forms and the processes that have taken place elsewhere can provide really valuable insights when looking through the Northern Ontario lens and defining how devolution could or should look for us in the North. So if we define it as a way of transferring authority or responsibility and resources through deconcentration, delegation, or devolution from the center to the lower levels of administration across the province, is that going to be sufficient to address the inequities? Or perhaps political devolution, which David alluded to as well, which focuses on organizations and procedures for increasing citizen participation in selecting those political representatives. And that really gets into one of the key aspects is that we all need to be involved and we all need to be well informed to make those decisions in terms of making public policy. And until the North, as a collaborative region, defines what devolution means to them, it will be very hard to make progress on this issue. And there are barriers to even getting to that stage, and that's what I want to talk about today. As both fellow panelists noted, there's a need for more data, and that's no news, nothing new to everyone sitting around in this room today. But we need it for the North to help align and make those evidence-based decisions or evidence-informed decisions, as opposed to the ideologically driven decisions that continue to happen across the region in the absence of the data that we don't have. This is particularly important when discussing devolution for the North. So let's just break that down a little bit more. Without the ability to join up, analyze, and act upon the data at a regional scale, how do we know if regional devolution will succeed? We can look to cities in the United Kingdom, for instance, with their experiences with data and devolution. There, every local regional authority and public sector organization has their little piece of the data. Sounds familiar for a lot of us in the room as well. But it becomes very difficult to put it all together and take a step back and see the big picture. And that's a profound problem if you're trying to reform public services, let's say. So then we need to turn the question to, how can we support the need for data? Perhaps open data will assist in this, or scaling the use of shared services. But until we can define a shared understanding of the need, issues like technical barriers, data barriers, cultural and organizational barriers, and legal barriers are going to continue to muddy the waters, and we are not going to get the accurate data to begin defining the need. But having an informed discussion, like what we're doing here today, we can start to build that common understanding, collaboration, and work towards solutions. And that common understanding is essential to moving the conversation forward and understanding the issues that we face across the North. But the golden question, how do we reach it? Now, I'm going to drop everyone's favorite new term, innovation. Regional innovation has been successful elsewhere in the world and really does provide a stepping stone that creates that self-generated development potential that we could have. And if we look at devolution in South Korea, for instance, it provides a unique study in relation to Northern Ontario, as the root of the issue there stems from the inter-regional conflict of concentrated population in Seoul versus the low rural populations in the remainder of the country, similar to some of the situations that we obviously see here, and those inequalities that it produced. So regional innovation in that context has seen increased collaboration and a means to address those inequalities. Regional innovation is really an economic basis for self-generating ability and the value creating ability of that region. Autonomy is the process of learning by doing, and this can't happen without everyone participating. Working together across sectors, having unlikely partners, stakeholders involving business, First Nation communities, working with not-for-profits and educational institutions. And the one point, David, I do agree with you on is the youth. I believe that youth need to be involved in every step of the process because we can't define the future without involving those who are going to be here for it. So I think that's really important for all of these discussions that we have here today. Communities, they really do, working with the nonprofits and the educational institutions really do provide an opportunity to start and continue to build a common understanding and a voice across the North. Well, I'm not saying that collaboration and innovation aren't happening here because I know that they're happening. I've been there. I've worked with individuals across the region to do this. I'm suggesting that the scale of collaboration and developing innovative alliances and projects needs to happen across the region, from the Northwest to the Northeast to the far North. When we look at devolution in Canada's Northern Territories, we see examples of all people working together for the common regional goal. While the examples of the Yukon First and then the Northwest Territories and Nunavut provide Northern Ontario with insights and perhaps best practices to devolution in the Canadian context. There hasn't been really substantive analysis around the outcomes for those territories. Further to that, devolution of the North took place at a federal level and not a provincial level. So that is why I want to circle back to regional innovation. It provides the North with an opportunity to pilot unique projects tailored to the wants and needs of the peoples of the region, build collaborative measures and a common understanding, but most importantly, make evidence-based decisions stemming from evaluated measures of those projects. The key to making evidence-informed decisions comes back around to having solid data, and that is really where we need to start the conversation. So that is where I want to leave it here today, because there's more questions. What do we need? We need to address the data issue. We have minds here today. We have this forum and this opportunity to discuss those. And I think that's where we can come together and start to build that collaborative and common voice and understanding to find solutions instead of addressing the same issues again and again and again. And on that note, I will leave it at that. Thank you very much.